The Democrats' favorite crypto creep and second biggest donor is really sorry about all that fraud. Disgraced former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried, who gave nearly $40 million to the Democrats and vaporized billions of his investors' money, is trying to win back his friends in the press by going on a media rehab tour. He got raucous applause during an event for the New York Times.
I want to thank you for engaging in it at a time, in truth, when I know you've been advised not to. So thank you so very, very much. Thank you.
And now he's sitting down with George Stephanopoulos to complain about how he's not a mini Madoff.
A lot of people look at you and see Bernie Madoff.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's who I am at all. At the end of the day, look, there's a question of what happened and why and who did what caused the meltdown. And I think that reads very differently, right? When you look at the classic Bernie Madoff story, there was no real business there. The whole thing, as I understand it, I think was just one big Ponzi scheme, right? FTX, that was a real business.
The crypto kingpin was also a big dollar donor to the media, showering them with millions. But Sam denies he was ever trying to buy influence. Okay.
Media matters a lot, and I want to support good media ventures. That was the whole thesis there. And, I don't have, governance over any of these. I wasn't looking for governance over them. I was looking to support journalists doing great work because I think what they do is really important, and I think that there needs to be a critical eye on stories.
All right, I'll go to that last quote, Greg, where he says, he gave money, tremendous amount of money, to the media, and he wasn't trying to influence them. He said, I was just looking for governance over the media. I was looking to support journalists who did good work. So he's looking to have governance over them when he doesn't have any governance over himself.
Well, that makes me feel bad because he didn't give me anything.
Exclamation, didn't get any money.
I didn't get any money from. Are we sure that's not Mark Cuban in a fro? I can't. But he kissed all the right butts, right?
Oh yeah.
He used the veil of virtue signaling, which is all signaling and no virtue, to get into these places. Also, his parents are well-known Democrats. But this does reflect the problem that you're seeing in the United States right now. It feels like the adults have left the room. A lot of the worst decisions in the last 2 years, like the abdication of law and order. All you do is see videos of people just walking in and stealing things, the abandonment of public decency, people living on the street, the death of risk-reward analysis, let's shut down forever. These are all the products of adolescent minds. And I feel like this pubescent hairball, whose voice is yet to change, is bilking people who should know better, is another example of how this new world of unquestioned tolerance has eliminated the ability to call BS on people. Now, if you call BS on anything, you are considered mean or intolerant. So this guy can pull these shenanigans, and if you call him out, you're the bad guy. Think about all the scammers that we've seen. Obviously, Avenatti, Smollett, Sam Brinton, right? If you pointed out Sam Brinkman at all, you would be considered, homophobic, transphobic, whatever phobic. So people just let this guy who obviously was troubled get away with stuff, and now he's, on leave. So I think that what the most valued person on earth is the person with the wisdom to call BS. We used to call them adults, and they need to return back and fix this place.
All right, Jesse, if someone kills someone and they say, well, I shouldn't be responsible for this. I never intended to kill that person. And that's what he's saying. I never intended to cause this fraud. But there are other levels of killing, like reckless, negligent. I mean, is he stupid enough, or is his lawyer, if he even has one, stupid enough to let him go on and say, I did this, this, and this. There was no governance, but I didn't have any intent.
So he's crypto Baldwin. And Baldwin also went and begged Stephanopoulos to clean up his act. I think that's where you go. You go see little Georgie when you're in trouble as a Democrat. Biden disgraced us in Afghanistan, goes to Georgie. Baldwin shoots his co-star. Oh, goes to Georgie, and then crypto goes to George. That's where you go if you're a Democrat, where you did something really bad and you kind of get rehabbed. And Greg was saying that no one calls BS anymore, and you're right. Someone did, though. Warren Buffett. And that's why they call him the Oracle. Because he said this thing is a scam, this crypto thing. It's for traffickers and drug smugglers. And that's why this guy's worth billions of dollars, because he's into fundamentals. He doesn't buy into bubbles. You could have a guy steal a lectern on January 6th, and the left wants him to spend the rest of his life in prison. He steals billions of dollars.
And he's still out.
And he gets a round of applause. You know what? Stay in the Bahamas, stick your feet up, drink some champagne, relax. Now, before we move on, I have to settle something with Geraldo. Geraldo, I bet you about the red wave in the Senate. I said the Republicans were going to win the Senate. I lost.
The red piddle.
It's because he bought the Senate, Mini Madoff, but I'm not going to scroll out. Here's my checkbook.
Okay.
Now, if I cut you this check, do not hold it up in front of the camera because my account number's on here.
Okay.
All right? It's $1,000. I'll put it right here.
So why don't we make it to Life's Work? That's
His
the charity.
Life's
we back.
Work?
Life's
Yes.
Work.
It's
WORC.
That's
I'm going to have to look
So
into
you'll be
this.
doing some good along with your humiliation.
Life's Work.
Your arrogant humiliation.
Okay.
Okay, but don't rub it in, Geraldo.
The hubris of youth.
All right, let me ask you this. This guy, SBF, he isn't entitled to have a three-letter name. He's admitted he had no real control. He's admitted that there was no real risk management. Isn't that in and of itself, you're a lawyer, a sign of fraud?
I think that he is a mini Madoff. He is a Ponzi scheme artist. I appreciate this. Jesse, it'll go to a good cause. And happy Thanksgiving to you and to everybody. I've missed you. First of all, I urge my children over the last couple of years, particularly, if it looks too good to be true, it's not true. Crypto couldn't go from 10,000 to 100,000, and it's not going to keep going up, and all these. This was a system that was designed so that drug dealers could exchange value for their product for something that's a currency, in essence, without the government knowing, without having to report anything.
Are you saying all crypto?
I think all crypto is suspect.
The genesis.
It's all suspect.
I disagree.
This guy reminds me of Elizabeth Holmes, attractive in his own way, but a real crook underneath. She got 11 years. He'll get something like this. He is a mini Madoff. A Ponzi scheme is where you keep taking money from customers and you use that money, you spend that money, and you use it to keep the company afloat. That's what he was doing. He was a Ponzi scheme of epic proportions.
But Geraldo, the Ponzi schemes existed with actual money. Yeah. So it's not about crypto, it's the scheme itself.
Well, okay, I suspend my total disbelief about crypto. It's just that when you get to be my age and it hasn't happened, and anyway, I reserve my specific ire, Judge, to the Matt Damons of the world, the Gwyneth Paltrows of the world, the Kim Kardashians of the world, who went out to their gullible millions and millions of fans who love them, who hang on their every word, and to listen to them, and fortune favors the bold. It's like it made you feel like a schmuck if you didn't get into crypto, and they should have liability. They should have liability. Kim Kardashian had to pay over $1 million because she didn't reveal on her Instagram that she was getting paid to promote one of these coins. I think that they all should. There should be an implied liability for these endorsers.
Yeah.
In the old days, remember when they said paid celebrity endorser? It was on the bottom of the screen. That's what we should have again.
All right, Katie, you want to wrap it up?
Watching this person, SBF, do all of these interviews, there's a couple of different themes. The first one is that he kind of throws his hands up and says, I don't know what happened. The dog ate the homework. It just kind of happened to me. I'm sorry. And then the media is now trying to turn him into a victim, which is the second theme of all of these interviews, which brings us to the point of going back to the funding. Can you imagine if Republicans got all this money before an election, held on to more seats than they were supposed to hold on to, according to historic record, and this happened? the only questions that the media would be asking is, who did you donate to? And they would be hounding them down and going to every single office on Capitol Hill, to their campaigns, and asking them and demanding answers about how they were going to get money back to the investors that he has defrauded. And on the crypto thing, Senator Cynthia Lummis, who actually is one of the very few people on Capitol Hill, Republican, who knows anything about crypto, says he's a fraudster. And as a result, now Democrats like Elizabeth Warren want to jump all over crypto and over-regulate the market when there are legitimate reasons why people are looking for a currency like crypto, as the U.S. government completely devalues their dollar and their spending power. So all the legitimate crypto guys are like, this guy should be in jail. Why is he still walking around? And now he's making it harder for us to run our legitimate businesses while he throws his hands up and acts like he's the victim in all of this. And the media helps him by hosting him, not pushing back too hard, not asking about where he spent the money to influence the very people who would be regulating him on Capitol Hill, and then giving him a round of applause for showing up and trying to explain himself by saying it wasn't fraud. It just happened to them. Yeah. I mean, it really is. Something smells really bad, and it's going to get much worse.
Yeah, I think it is.
That's me.
And it'll only get worse when he's in handcuffs.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.